Saludos desde Bogotá. Today I'd like to talk to you about how I learned my first 8 languages. I'm super excited to share with you my early adventures with the hope that they'll help and inspire you in your own fascinating journey through languages and cultures. I have used over 30 languages in 99 countries over the past 5 decades. Between the ages of 18 and 22, I went from speaking just English and Spanish to a total of 8 languages. The other languages were Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Serbo-Croatian, and Russian. The first important tip I have for you is to make sure you nurture your passion and motivation. I remember from about the age of 6, I just loved to listen to foreign languages on shortwave radio. Yeah, of course I couldn't understand what they're saying, but I just loved the sound of it. It was like music to my ears. At the same time, I was dying to know what they were saying. And this passion led me to learning Spanish and interacting with the Cuban community from about the age of 14. And then later, at age 18, I came here to Bogotá, Colombia to study for a year. So I think it's advantageous first to reflect on why you want to learn foreign languages and experience foreign cultures. You can ask yourself the questions, are you fascinated by the sounds, the structures, and the beauty of foreign languages? Do you experience excitement and joy when communicating with others in their own mother tongue? Does the intellectual challenge of mastering a new language system motivate you? Do you want to watch movies, read literature, and listen to foreign music in the original language? I've met many young people when traveling around the world who speak Japanese quite well. And when I ask them why, it's because they just love anime. Do you have a deep interest in other cultures? I certainly do. That's why I became professor of cross-cultural management. Do you want to understand a new way of life, values, beliefs, worldviews? Do you want to navigate the world more effectively for business or for pleasure? All these are important questions to consider to ignite your passion and motivation. Both passion and motivation, when nurtured, create a positive feedback loop. The more you learn, the more you want to learn. You get to enjoy the process, not just outcomes. If anywhere along your language learning journey you lose motivation, go back to these questions. It can ignite your passion and motivation. Now I would like to share some effective tips on how you can learn multiple languages at the same time. As I said, right now I'm speaking to you from Bogotá, Colombia, and this is where my polyglot journey truly began. In the summer of my 18th year, I went to an intensive course here at Universidad de los Andes in Bogotá. Then I started studying Latin American literature and political science. At the same time, I studied French at Alliance Française, Portuguese at Instituto Brasileiro de Línguas, and German at Goethe Institute. However, actually, I learned more studying on my own. My whole life, I've been a self-learner, and here are some tips that will help you increase the effectiveness of your own self-study. First, establish a daily and weekly routine for studying your languages. By never missing a class at any of the language institutes, at least I was sure that I would benefit from the class study if something interfered with my own study at home. It's important to set aside time to study your languages every day. It's much more effective to study 15-30 minutes every day than cram 3 or 4 hours into 1 day a week. These consistent and short-term study periods help you retain what you've learned. You don't have to keep going back and reviewing so much. If you're studying multiple languages, it's important to establish priorities for the languages. Usually there's at least one language which becomes the most important. At that time, back in 1975 here in Bogotá, for me it was French. Why? Because in 1976, I planned to go to Geneva, Switzerland to study international relations, and I was going to have classes in French there. Note the similarities and the differences among the languages you are studying. Think about them. That will help you keep the language separate when you are speaking them. Avoiding unwanted interference. but also speeding up your learning process. If possible, learn a new language in a foreign language that you know well. This strategy, known as laddering, can deepen your understanding of both languages and provide insights into their shared structure and vocabulary. As I mentioned, back in 1975, here in Bogota, I was studying Portuguese, German, and French in Spanish. And it really helped deepen my understanding of Spanish. And in the case of Portuguese, I noticed the similarities and differences between these two languages. And that really sped up, accelerated my learning. Next, it's important to improve your concentration and develop greater discipline. While in Colombia, I obtained linguaphone courses which had textbook and small vinyl records for audio. And I would spend hours upstairs in the room I was renting at a local family's house near here in Chapinero. The way I increased my discipline and concentration was, I would decide I can't even have a sip of tea until I finish the page I'm studying or the dialogue I'm trying to memorize. Practice mindfulness. Being fully present and engaged in your study can improve the effectiveness of your study sessions. So one thing that can help you in developing mindfulness while studying is observe your thoughts. Sometimes they start to wander away from what you're trying to learn. Don't get frustrated. Just observe them, acknowledge them, and gently bring back your focus to what you're learning. The next important tip is to establish exciting and challenging goals. I remember one day when I was studying, I thought, gee, wouldn't it be fantastic to learn all the major languages of the world? I thought, what would that be? Languages spoken by 50 million people or more. 48 years have passed since I established that challenging goal. And actually, I'm quite close to achieving it. And along the way, I've learned a lot of minor languages. Concerning goals, I would like to mention that for the past 2 years, I have been tutoring a 25-year-old student. 2 years ago, she spoke Vietnamese and English only, and she didn't think she could learn any other language. It was such an effort to learn English well. After helping her go through the process of realizing that she can do much more than she thinks she can now speak Spanish, Thai, and Indonesian. And she has a new goal to be very fluent in 10 languages by the age 35. These big goals can be very motivating. Shoot for the moon. And even if you miss, you land amongst the stars. Next, I think it's really important to create an image of yourself as a competent and fluent speaker of your target languages. Visualize yourself speaking that foreign language fluently with native speakers. For me, that visualization meant that I imagined dialogues in my head with native speakers concerning situations I expected to encounter when I used that language. Furthermore, I often challenged myself to pass as a native speaker in short interactions. Doing that helps me create a strong new identity, linguistic and cultural identity associated with that target language. It's also very important to read as much as you can in your target languages. After studying for a year here in Bogota, I set out on a 6-month journey all around South America, starting by going down the Amazon. In each country I visited, I made it a point to buy books by famous authors in that country. And in doing so and reading those books along the way, of course, it improved my ability in Portuguese and Spanish, but it also gave me insight into the culture and the history of each country. Reading books was also the way that I started learning Italian, because the first time I went to Italy, I noticed I could understand so much. Spanish was perhaps the greatest help, but also at that time I could speak Portuguese and French fluently. On your language learning journey, sometimes the next language that you learn will be a surprise. You never expected to learn that language. During my 6 months tour around South America, I met a girl from Slovenia in Bolivia. and we traveled some together. So I started learning some Slovene from her. The next year, while studying in Switzerland, I started to learn Serbo-Croatian. For 3 months, I rode along the Adriatic coast, reading my textbook, studying every night, and interacting with the local people. I really fell in love with Slavic languages. After returning to the US for 1 year, I began to study Russian, and then with some friends, we rented a van in Europe and took a camping trip around the Soviet Union for 3 months, mainly in Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. And afterwards, I went to Poznan, Poland to study Slavic languages. So altogether, I've studied 10 Slavic languages and still remain fascinated by this group of languages. So, by my 23rd birthday, in other words, basically 4 years, I could speak English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, German, Serbo-Croatian, and Russian. With passion and dedication, I guarantee you, you can learn a lot more language than you think you can now. It will enrich your life, no matter how good you think your life is now. Please visit polyglotdreams.com, where my memoir is available in various languages, including dual readers, which can be a great source of comprehensible input. And if you like this video, please give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Thank you for listening. Muchas gracias. Muito obrigado. Dankeschön. Merci beaucoup.